have so many videos I would like to try to get through before the end of the month. And I'm just gonna start with episode 17 of the serial killer series. Let's go. So Kentucky has had its share of notorious serial killers. A few that have been active in the state. Harry Greenwald, also known as the I-65 killer or the Days Inn killer, was responsible for the rape and murders of 3 women along the Interstate 65 corridor in Kentucky and Indiana. His crimes occurred over 30 years ago, and he was identified using investigative genealogy. Donald Harvey, dubbed the Angel of Death, was a former nurse's aide who admitted to killing more than 36 hospital patients in Ohio and Kentucky from 1970 to 1987. He used arsenic and cyanide to poison patients, claiming he was easing their suffering. Harvey died in 2017 after being attacked in prison. Samuel Little, considered the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history, confessed to killing 93 people between 1970 and 2005, with at least one victim from Kentucky. He was arrested in Louisville in 2012 and was connected to the 1981 murder of Linda Sue Boards in Warren County, Kentucky. These cases have left a rather lasting impact on the communities in Kentucky. Kentucky has also had its share of unsolved cases. This includes both missing persons and murders. Here are 3 notable ones, right? So Brian Barker, who was a popular hairstylist who disappeared in 2005. His remains were found more than 3 years later, but his killer has never been found. Kathy Netherland and Samantha Netherland. Kathy and her daughter Samantha were found shot dead inside their Botland home in Nelson County on April 21st, 2014. It has been 10 years and their case has remained unsolved. Louisville murder case 2020. In Louisville, a murder case from 2020 remains unsolved. The victim was known to the perpetrator, but despite ongoing efforts, justice has not been served. These cases highlight the challenges faced by law enforcement in solving crimes and bringing closure to victims' families. Okay, hear this part though. The longest-serving death row inmate in Kentucky is Carew Gene White. He has been on death row for nearly 44 years at this point, which exceeds the sentences of most other inmates facing execution nationwide. White was convicted for his role in the brutal murders of 3 elderly Breathitt County shopkeepers in February 1979, when he was just 20 years old. Despite the passage of time, he remains on death row at Kentucky State Penitentiary in Lyon County, awaiting an execution that may never come. His case is emblematic of a capital punishment system in Kentucky that many supporters and opponents alike consider to be badly broken and in need of drastic overhaul or elimination altogether. Now, a little bit more on Carew Gene White. Born November 18, 1958, he was sentenced to death on March 29, 1980 in Powell County, Kentucky for the brutal murders of those residents in Breathitt County. His crimes were both heinous and tragic. The victims were Charles Gross, age 75, Lola Gross, age 74, Sam Chaney, age 79. On the evening of February 12, 1979, White and 2 accomplices entered a store in Haddocks, Kentucky, operated by the elderly victims. Armed with a wrench, a tire tool, and a tree limb, they bludgeoned the 3 victims to death during a robbery. The trio left the scene with approximately $7,000 in cash, coins, and a handgun. White was arrested on July 27, 1979. He pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the court convicted him and sentenced him to die. Due to the brutal nature of the fatal beatings, the victims had to be buried in body bags. The case involved an abundance of circumstantial evidence linking White to the murders. His half-brother Thomas Bowling and another accomplice, Charles Fisher, were also indicted for their roles in the crimes. Fisher, who was 15 at the time, testified for the prosecution. Separate trials were ordered, and White was tried first. The jury convicted him on all counts, and the trial imposed the death sentence for each of the 3 murders. The tragic events left a lasting impact on the community and underscored the severity of capital punishment in Kentucky. I think that's a good stopping point for Kentucky, right? Right? Okay. I'll see you in the next one.